a panelist, and we can, oh, now we're down to 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We only have 5. Okay, so we are definitely below quorum.
Oof.
1, 2. I think the reason I always do the math for quorum is, Tom, you and Michael were added as individual members, not one and then an alternate, right? From
Yeah.
permanent town building?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that does bring us to 12, which would be 6 plus 1, 7, 6, 4. And now we are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so as long as oh, that must be John Cunningham in the attendees list. So we'll do that. Promote him. Okay, now we've got everybody. We just needed to give it another minute. And we're already recording. It's great. Okay, let's just make sure. All right, great. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Robinson School Building Committee. That's right. Now I'm remembering Kristen said she couldn't make it today. For Tuesday, April 29th. Our first order of business, which my apologies that I did not send, I forgot to send out the meeting minutes with the agenda. So I'm going to put those up on the screen for us to take a look at. And see if I can get them a little bit bigger. So these were from April 8th. We approved minutes. We gave an update on the certification of vote. The website had some quick updates. This was our meeting after town meeting. So we gave a couple updates. We had some questions on the timeline.
Is this one right?
We discussed the enrollment certification. Had some follow-up questions for them. No update on the second site locations. And an action item to chat with the communications consultants. Any feedback on the minutes? Or do you need another minute with them? Everybody good? I can't see heads now because the whole thing changed. Make that bigger. Okay. I'll take a motion to approve the April 8th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Chu. And a second?
Allison, second.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor of approving Tuesday, April 8th meeting minutes? Tom?
I have to abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay. I'm an aye. Lindsay?
Aye.
Dr. Chu?
Aye.
John? Leffers?
Aye.
Allison?
Aye.
Kevin?
And I also want to let you know that I attended 2 weeks ago a meeting as well that nobody attended. Just want to let you know that I was really excited about our committee, and we had a week off, and so wasn't sure what to do. But if we could do separate minutes for that meeting, I'd appreciate it.
No rest for Kevin. He's attending meetings with nobody.
We must have missed each other because I think I dialed into that as well and
All
sat
right.
there for a few minutes before I realized.
I'm really
we're not having
sorry.
it.
We're
No,
gonna
it's okay.
we're gonna talk about moving forward a schedule and set those dates because you're not the only ones. Sorry about that. So Kevin was an aye. Tom Clay?
Aye.
And John, is that you, John Cunningham, on your iPad? I wonder if the mute button is a little bit harder to find.
I'm an alternate, so I don't know what I should
Oh,
go to.
okay. All right, great. That's right. Thank you. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with one abstain. Okay, great. Close that. So I don't think today is, in my mind, more of a bit of a check-in on a couple things. So it might be short depending on how long it takes us. We do have a sort of a follow-up from our last discussion about the enrollment letter. This was in your email. This should not be new to Tom and John. This was in the select board packet as well. And if you follow school committee ongoings, it was in our packet as well last night. And this is just an updated letter from our last discussion on the 8th. If you recall, we had a couple sort of clarifying questions for the MSBA team. Dr. Chu, Lindsay, and I met with them on the 10th. And it was a great conversation. I thought we really, you know, they have all these kind of constraints of for like, I feel like a formula for what they put in the letters. So it was very helpful to like actually talk human alongside the legalese of the letter. You know, what I guess I want to make sure to call attention to for the committee is that this updated letter obviously reflects more of what this committee has talked about and what we've presented to town meeting and the community, which is that this feasibility study will include analysis of the option for absorbing the day school as well as a slightly larger option. So you can see from the new the certification that there's now 3 project sizes. I'll pause there. Tom?
Yes, I'm trying to find the I mean, we have 2 letters, you know, a summary one and then a fairly long one, as you say, fairly legalese that took me a couple of reads to try to parse it.
Yep.
And I'm trying to find should have printed it out and wrote on it. Somewhere it said that they will not pay for the part of the feasibility study that includes the day school. Did I read that correctly?
So I opened this to Lindsay and Dr. Chu to correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that they encourage us to study that project within the budget of our approved feasibility study, and that the feasibility study part is eligible for reimbursement, but that ultimately that project, that larger project, would splinter off into a portion that is not reimbursable because the original eligibility letter was for Robinson and Abbott.
Correct. That's the way that they had talked with us about it. Our interpretation of their previous letter, thinking that it didn't prohibit us from looking as to whether or not we could absorb the day school, they said that was correct. They didn't include that in the letter that they sent to us, even though we had talked about it in the meeting, because they were also concerned about if that would be new information for our community. So they're trying to be very supportive of where we are at in the stage of communication. And back to the legalese part and the template that Valerie was talking about, our initial SOI and the scope that they invited us into the eligibility process for only included the Robinson School and the Abbott School. Since we discovered in the process that we thought it's possible to actually absorb the day school as well too, they're saying they encourage us to explore that, but they're bound by the letter that they originally invited us into. So the feasibility, they encouraged us to explore that with the feasibility within the approved budget that we had. And then, yes, what Valerie said is that if the community decided to move forward with the larger project of 1,000 students,
Right.
then there would most likely be aspects of that building, parts of that building that would be including the additional students that they wouldn't reimburse, but all of that information would be available to us before the community makes a decision. So
Okay.
whatever we bring forward from the feasibility process with whatever this committee thinks is the preferred solution, it will also say this X amount is reimbursable by the MSBA. And if you did this X amount is reimbursable. So all of it will be communicated because all of that comes to us from the MSBA before we would move to the community with a vote to fund an actual project.
Lindsay?
Yeah, and I'll just add, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I think we got a draft feasibility study agreement from them. I think this, just to, we can check the language in there and ask any clarifying questions on, just to make sure that all of this, architect scope or diligence work under the 1.6 million, if we're studying this other larger option, just to make sure that those costs are in fact eligible. I think the details will be flushed out in that larger agreement. But that was my understanding as well from our conversation with them.
Does that clear that up, Tom, for you? But
Yes, you're saying that it doesn't affect the feasibility study, but it will affect any construction project that we may decide to do.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I really asked them in plain speak, like, we told the community we want to get to a point where we've at least studied that option and
Right.
we'd be able to present that, that picture.
Well, we did present that, I think, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that's one of the things we had said, Tom, is we shared with them that this was already community knowledge. So
Right.
the second letter that they sent us doesn't really change anything from their end and from the conversations we had. It's just that the first letter was really responding to what the scope is. And so they said they've done this, I think they said, for 3 or 4 other communities who have done similar things to us that we're doing. So they said they would be happy to resend a letter to us so that we can share with the community, so that the community sees what it is that we've been talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say I had to read this a lot.
my impression of it is that they must have like existing paragraphs, sort of templates that they kind of drop in, and that I agree with you, Tom. I had to read it a couple times. It doesn't flow. It's a little
It's not
yeah.
flow.
Yeah, but great discussion, great clarifying question. It is an important sort of point in our process that I really want to make sure everyone's clear on, so that we don't get to a
My other question was,
Yep.
I assume that you all are okay with their projections on number of students.
Yeah, that's what we looked at in their methodology. I mean, I will say we can ask them clarifying questions, but it is their methodology. So if we don't agree with it, then we had a chance to say, hey, we think you should consider this, but it is something that ultimately they establish and then we sign off on agreeing to. And so we did do that.
yeah. And they acknowledge the housing developments. There's a 15%. What I thought was interesting is not only is there sort of there's a 15% buffer on the other schools. So on the non-project schools, they give a little bit of buffer for growth, sort of district wide. So it's not just like a magnifying glass on the project.
Okay.
Any other points on this updated enrollment letter? So there was a deadline of the 24th. We got all the signatures required and scanned that off to them on the night of the 24th. And so that is officially submitted. As Lindsay mentioned, they emailed us yesterday with a feasibility study agreement as well as a certification of legal counsel. 2 documents that we will obviously have our town council review, and I can share with the committee for all of your review as well. Anything you want to add there, Lindsay or Dr. Chu? I know you were copied on those.
Just that they're wanting us to sign the agreement once we've reviewed it, and it won't be official until the executive director is able to sign it following they're anticipating the June 18th board meeting. They'll vote to approve this, in which case she would sign it, and we would then be officially entering the feasibility study phase.
Yep, and I actually did a quick follow-up question to Maria to clarify that timeline, that these are the final steps, the final deliverable in the eligibility period. And she confirmed that was true, and she expects that we can return those documents by May 19th, about 3 weeks she gives us for review. So okay. So I'll speak to our communications work. So as at our last meeting on the 8th, you know, coming out of the town meeting approval, I felt very energized to, like, of all these ways to keep the community up to date on this project. I think that, you know, we certainly don't want to get to a point where members of the community are being asked to vote on something in some amount of months and haven't been sort of educated along the way. And we know that there will be outreach as part of the sort of the feasibility study, as the feasibility study kicks off in the fall. And so Kristen had suggested I meet with the town communications consultants, that's Capital Strategic Solutions. And so I had a meeting with them. It was great. They have had experience in this area. They they recommended no such thing as too much communication. And we talked a little bit about this may be sort of, it feels obvious once you say it, but they talked a little bit about like that there are sort of tiers of responses. So when we like hire an OPM, there's this like tier 1 response of drafting a press release, having it go out on all the town website, newsflash, social medias, town manager newsletter, and on our internal website. And then when there are other updates that we feel like are sort of medium tier that we could do, maybe it's not the full press release, but it's like a news flash on the town website. So thinking that helped me think through, our process and our timeline to say like, okay, when it's this major announcement, it would be this suite of this package deal sort of, and then if it's this like, these smaller milestones, we can approach it in different ways. One of the biggest takeaways I found from our conversation was they were very supportive and eager for us to get an active website. They thought that, you could have smaller updates as we go that we could be more in control of on a website. And that anytime you do like the press release and the news flash, you're really pointing people to trust this one source of information on this project website. So that was helpful because I feel like in my mind, I had kind of deprioritized the website a little bit to think like, oh, that's a nice to have. When we get to it, we'll get to it. But they were really helpful in reframing that. And if you recall at our April 8th meeting, Kristen had mentioned that Mike Wells, the town IT director, is investigating a separate website idea for the Economic Development Committee. And so she recommended aligning with him to make sure that if there's any efforts happening in that space, that we could leverage them for this project as well. He and I have played a little bit of phone tag, so I have yet to connect with him since coming back from break. But that's my next step. And then at that point, I'm hoping to loop Allison in. I know you've offered support for whatever this manifests into as a next step. So any feedback on that?
Just want to point out that the broken link on the newsflash page where it says for updates.
Oh, no. You're right. I guess I didn't check that. Okay. Well, I'll get that updated. Thanks, Tom. Tom, did you raise your hand?
Yeah. The So as you've correctly pointed out, the Economic Development Committee is facing a similar issue. In their work with Mike Wells, there had been an assertion that the kind of the main town website generator that the town uses could be customizable and could be tweaked to fit all kinds of needs. It turns out it can't really be customized very much. Like you can change the color of like the headline banner and maybe that's it. So probably the crossroads decision for this group would be, do we want to have it follow the same format, or do we think we'd be able to much better communicate if it was a different website, sort of organized differently? And that raises the question of, well, if it's a different website and it's hosted in a different way, then it probably has some money attached to it that we have to think through. But that's the update that I have. The Economic Development Committee is sort of struggling because they believe they can do much more, and it is an outward-facing website to try to attract potential businesses to town and other things. So so they're trying to navigate through, like, can they create something that's separate, and who would pay for it? So we may be facing the same questions here.
Dr. Chu?
One of the things that I know we had talked about and Kathy had mentioned was whether or not we want to create a simplified Google site that is easier for us to control, that is linked here as well too. We've done that for other things within the school system. It's something that both could point to. It's just, it would allow us a little bit. Now it's a Google site, so it has limitations, but that was something that wouldn't cost us anything. So.
Allison, did I see you on mute? Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in this. I've just had to learn different types of website development for each job that I've been in, and they've all been different. So I'm happy to like learn through this process, but I've never done the Google site. But I do remember when we first started talking about this, I remember looking at it and texting you, Valerie, about, I think that a small cost was associated with it. And I know that costs like, I don't know if it's possible for me to like donate to pay for basically the URL. And then I think we can just go from there. But I kind of wanted to play with it a little bit to see what it was like before really bringing it to the group. But I'm kind of paywalled before I can do anything. I have to actually pick what the URL would be and pay for it. And it was something really small. So, but that's an option, and I would be willing to donate that to the group if that's allowed.
I appreciate that. I actually don't know off the top of my head the mechanism for that. I guess it'd be something I would check with Kristen on. Oh, Kathy.
Hi, I think you'd have to determine if the domain like rsbc.com is used elsewhere. And if you purchase that, I know through Google, it's $10 a year.
Yeah, it's really small.
Yeah.
I was playing around with different ones. I just didn't want to make a decision on any of this without talking to, the group. And then it kind of, once it was brought to the group, then Kristen said we should talk with the economic team. So
Great.
it kind of stopped to
Yep.
try to collaborate there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kathy, for cutting you off.
Go ahead, Tom.
I'm a bit flummoxed about I both support and am cautious about everybody going in different directions when we're doing website stuff. I'm a little bit flummoxed by the fact that the layout mechanism that the town is using is so limited.
Yeah, Civics Plus, I think, leaves much to be desired.
Yeah, and I mean, I've done this stuff professionally for years, and I'm just concerned. I don't know if I want to talk to Kristen or Mike about what's going on here, because I hate for everybody to have to do their own thing, because eventually there's security issues and all sorts of issues beyond that. You know, what happens if somebody defaces the website,
Mhm.
things like
And
that.
public records concerns and everything. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
all that stuff.
Yep.
And it just, I applaud everybody for wanting to do something, but I'm also wanting to warn people that there's concerns here. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we're able to do things that we need to be able to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the inspirations for investigating this is that it's like that Allison has offered to support mini updates along the way, which would take that off Kathy's plate or off someone else in IT. You know, so I think that's attractive to me. I want to
yeah.
make sure that we have that sort of independence. But I think you raised some good points. I guess I would maybe propose that if you can articulate some of those and then some of your concerns, Tom, and then either directly reach out to Mike Wells or Kristen with them. But yeah, go ahead.
Tom, who Economic Development Committee is also looking at this?
Yeah. So you could either talk to our consultant or whose name I'll have to dig up for you, or Cheryl, who's the current chair. I almost feel like if it makes sense to you, Valerie, I almost feel like I should go just talk to Kristen and Mike quickly and say, what's the constraint if these communication-oriented websites, if we need more flexibility than we're going to be able to get from Civics Plus, I almost don't want to ask to be regulated, like give them the opportunity to say no. I just want to say, like, what's the consequence and how do we manage it if we need to do something different? And maybe we do the same different thing as the Economic Development Committee, but
That's if we all do the same different thing, at least that will reduce our legal and all that kind of stuff, having to
Yeah.
read around get the things correct.
Okay, let me, since there's two that are facing basically the same problem, let me ask, and I think, like if we need to move forward and have Allison start doing some work, I don't think there's a lot of risk of going forward on spec and getting the site and beginning to do a little bit of development. I mean, worst case is we uncover some extra capability in Civics Plus and end up going that direction.
Yeah, I mean, schools use Google Workplace all the time. Like it's the public school platform because it's so cost effective. And websites are so day to day now. I mean, I don't really even know of infiltrating or having any data breaches or anything like that. And for our use, it's really just a landing page of narrative, like text. We're not doing anything fancy. We just want to have the autonomy to update on the daily if needed.
I understand, but I mean, just like I just on the broken link.
I would think, I would think, oh, Lindsay, I just cut in front of you. I'm sorry, but I was just going to respond to Allison quickly, if that's okay. I would think, especially if we're talking about a $10 domain, and we can still ask this question of Kristen, if concerned about this committee, but so much of this work has already been supported by the school budget and by the town budget that if the school district was to purchase the RSBC URL or whatever we decided what to do, that's very different than actually going ahead and using it, right? So that would allow Allison to actually create something. And I think to Tom's point, before we actually publish it and before we actually use it, but I think $10, but what we don't need is, and I totally appreciate it, Allison, offering to donate it, but I think you're right. That's where it starts getting sticky. But I can assure this group that the Westford Public Schools has the $10 within our budget to purchase the URL. So Allison, if this committee is okay with that, I would have Allison, you and Kathy could work together to figure out how we do that. And like I said, the school district, we do use Google Sites for a lot of different things. And Allison's right, it has become our go-to in many ways. But I agree with all of Tom's concerns, both Tom's concerns, about about whether whether that's actually what we do. But I think if this group is okay with it, I would propose that we at least get the URL so that Allison could see what she could do with it.
Lindsay?
I was just gonna say, depending on how much content we want to put up prior to getting our OPM on board, we could also, OPM firms, and architect firms, but I would prefer the OPM firm to do so, could manage a website for us, and may offer that as part of their services. It would, so there's something to consider. But we may want to go ahead and purchase the URL now so that we have that for them then to use. But
Okay.
that's an idea as well.
Great. I'm seeing some head nods. Is there consensus to have Allison investigate purchasing a URL and work with Kathy to do that? Okay, great.
Yes.
Great. Okay, awesome. That's very helpful. And Tom has an action item to follow up with Mike and Kristen on constraints. And we'll go from there. Okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate
And
that.
Which Tom?
It sounded like Tom Clay is going to use
That's
his
what I thought.
existence with his
What I thought.
existing relationship with the Economic Development Committee. Okay. Where did I leave off?
Is there a domain name that you want to focus on, rsbc.com, or Allison might have some in mind too?
I was comfortable sort of trusting Allison's expertise on what she recommends.
Yeah, I would try and stick with an org, if we can, and whatever's available. If it's Robinson MSBA, like it is, I would keep it consistent with what we've been using, I think. But I think whatever is easiest.
Tom?
So we can't get rsbc.westfordmass.gov because that's a thing that we actually already own.
I don't know that I can answer that.
No, we would have to do something different because it's already attached to that page.
Yeah.
But it isn't.
Oh, what is it? What's the name of it?
If you put a dot, I'd have to talk to Mike Wells to ask how our
Okay.
DNS is working. But the deal is if you have a dot before the westfordmass.gov, that is not involved with the page, the web server. That happens before the web server.
Okay.
It happens at the name lookup. So I could ask Mike Wells if that's possible or not.
I'm out of my depth here on content.
I figured that.
But I
think the
guess
term I think the term you're looking for is a subdomain, right? If you're
Yes,
looking
it
for
is. Oh, I know, it's a subdomain. I was
Okay.
trying to avoid yet
But-
more
I guess I would
technical BS.
I guess I would prefer I think while we refer to ourselves as RSBC and we know what that means, I think the Robinson MSBA is the more universally recognizable term, instead of like kind of truncating that down to another acronym. And everyone knows I'm a fan of acronyms, but I feel like the Robinson MSBA is a little bit more community level. And so finding a way to incorporate that, I think, in the URL is what I would support.
I mean, somebody could go ahead and get the robinsonmsba.org. Because you
Okay.
can have
Yep,
multiple names pointing to the same thing.
Yeah, sounds like Allison, you can investigate that. Okay, great. Okay, so I guess what I also wanted to give an update on second site locations. The land use department team has put together a very, very preliminary initial draft list that has been shared with me. I think it's a very rough list. There's, it's got 100 properties on there. that, you know, exceed 20 acres in land area. We obviously, you know, some of them are privately owned, some of them are town owned, or town organization related owned. And some of them have buildings on them. Like, so there's still a work to do to cull that list down further. I would propose that that I can work with Lindsay to further cull that down in terms of whether that timeline works to sort of have that second site narrowed a bit before we bring the OPM on board. And to just make better use of their time and money, right? So that was always sort of the plan, to do a little bit of that legwork up front, I think. So that list is not public record yet because there is, you know, private companies' names on there and properties, and that would be I think, protected by executive session when anytime you're talking about land negotiations, so, or strategy with regards to that. So that's just a quick update on there. I do want to just make sure we talk about how the committee feels about our next couple meetings. We obviously have those 2 legal documents that will be reviewed and sent back to the MSBA by the, what did I say, 19th. We would plan to be on the June 18th MSBA meeting agenda. And aside from the website and some offline work on the second site, there's not a whole lot that would be, you know, a good use of everyone's on this committee's time. So I think I would propose maybe a check-in in a couple weeks. Does everyone have a reaction to that? Okay. How about like June 3rd
June 3rd.
or the week before? No.
When do we need to have any comments on the docs back to you? Or who do we send those to, I guess, is another question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the legal docs are expected back to MSBA by May 19th. So I can send those out, and any direct comments should, I think, just to not violate open meeting law, would go directly to me, and then I can funnel those to Kristen as part of the legal review.
Okay.
So why don't I send that out today and ask for feedback on those by Friday close of business, just to give legal enough time?
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's enough time actually, because just depending on if they have to do any drafting, they get it on the 16th, and then they wouldn't have they'd only have maybe Monday morning in order to like make any changes or to even respond to the comments. So I'm wondering if we ought not get those back earlier to give time to react.
Oh, I meant by this Friday. Like for our
This Friday.
sorry.
Oh, okay.
I see this as, I mean, I'm trusting legal sort of with the
Mhm.
review, and if we as individual committee members want to do that due diligence and read those documents and have any feedback, I welcome that. But I think that's sort of an initial piece that
Yep.
that is superseded by the legal review. So I guess
Mhm.
I can send those out
I-
today. Does that make
I
sense,
took it
John?
to mean I took it to mean the 16th. I was looking at
Okay.
I started on the 19th, and I just kind of flipped back a week to
No,
look
no,
to
I
look
see.
at the days. Yeah.
So why don't we say any internal feedback would be due to Valerie by May 2nd? And then legal can incorporate that and have, you know, hopefully then they don't use those full 2 weeks, but like you said, to get that back for them by as soon as possible before the 19th. But I don't necessarily see that as an agenda item for discussion, just if that speaks to you for an internal, an individual review, please feel free to do that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so with that said, those pieces would be turned into the MSBA by the 19th, and we would be on their agenda for the 18th. Any updates between now and then that would happen with like the website can always be emailed out to the committee, but like I said, I'm just trying to make an efficient use of everyone's time. I know this is during the workday that I don't know that there's like a decision point or discussion point on some of that work. So how does everyone feel about that June 3rd as a check-in? Okay. Sorry, Tom, was that a hand or a
No,
thumbs
no,
up?
it sounds good.
Okay, okay, great. All right, so let's plan for June 3rd. Is there anything else, Lindsay? At one point we had talked about sort of beginning a draft of what the RFS would look like to sort of hit the ground running as soon as we get that green light. Would that be something in terms of before the MSBA board meeting? I'm just looking at my calendar, the June 18th. Do you feel like that would be something that we could have an initial discussion on at the June 3rd?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so draft RFS, website update.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yep, and we'll have the final copies of the legal docs by then, and any update in advance for the MSBA meeting. Okay.
Valerie, forgive me.
Yep.
We've talked so much about various locations for site one. What was the one that we landed on as a definite site one?
I think the existing building is always site one because that renovation is part of the study. So they're always going to do an analysis of what can that site handle for repair and renovation. But great question, because yeah, you're right. Sometimes we assume something and move on, and I think that's helpful.
Just then, I guess, leads me to my next question that, with that very comprehensive list of potential site twos, could we also identify a potential site three?
That really is site three.
That's site three.
Right? So
Yeah.
site, the
Okay.
list, site two is here next to the Abbott School.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
What we're really talking about is looking for site three. So that's,
Thank you.
but that's a good point, Kevin. Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification on terminology, so that we don't further confuse anyone watching. All right, so next meeting, June 3rd, and let me know of any concerns or questions in the meantime. I will get those legal docs out to the committee, and any feedback due back to me by the 2nd, please. Okay, I'm seeing head nods, so I guess I'm not on mute. I'll take a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Oh, there you go,
Tom.
Tom.
Okay, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Chris.
Nobody wanted to adjourn.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. I'm trying to get you back 15 minutes. All right, thanks, everybody. All in
Thank you.
favor of adjourning. Appreciate it. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Take care.
folks.
Bye.